Welcome back to the channel, Book Dragons. I am so glad you're here with me today. I'm really excited to talk to you about a book I just finished today. And this is a relatively new book on the market. And the author is Robert Jackson Bennett. And if you're not familiar with his books, he's written several other books, like the City of Stairs trilogy. That's not what it's called, I don't think, but that's what I know it as right now. That's all I can think of off the top of my head. And he's also written one other series that I can't remember the name of right offhand. But I did get a hold of his newest book, The Tainted Cup. And oh boy, I just finished it today. And I'm like, I am going to film my thoughts on it right now, so it's all fresh. And I'm here to talk about this book with you guys today. And I am loosely labeling this as botany punk. That is not what it's called officially. I kind of went back and forth on spore punk or, other types of punk. And the reason I say punk is because it has an extremely strong noir element to it. It is a fantasy story with a very heavy detective element to it. So typically when you hear about things being cyberpunk or steampunk or things like that, a lot of times you're going to see kind of a mystery element to it. So I was thinking, okay, well, botany is the study of plants, and there are plants everywhere in this book, guys. So I am labeling it botany punk. You can argue with me on that if you want. That's totally fine. That's just what I'm calling it. But it's a really fun story, and I am so glad that I read it. As I said, it is a detective story, and it is told from the first-person perspective of Dennis Cole. Dennis is a junior Imperial investigator working under the auspices of Immunis Ana Delabra. She is the main investigator that has been assigned by the Empire to the region of Daratana. And Daratana is just this little small, out-of-the-way segment of society, and supposedly she has been sent there as a punishment to just kind of get her out of the way. There's more to come on that in the story, so that's all I'm going to say right there. But they have been called in to investigate a very strange occurrence of a high-ranking Imperial officer waking up one day and being really sick, and then all of a sudden a large tree-like structure sprouts from his body, killing him instantly. And this tree structure becomes part of the house that he's been staying at. And so it's just this freak accident per se, and they've been called in to investigate it, and eventually it turns into a murder investigation. So it's a lot of fun. I love a good mystery, and when I heard this talked about, and the people I've seen reviews from talked about how it's a fantasy mystery, I'm like, oh, I'm all over that, because I love classic mysteries. Like Agatha Christie is one of my favorite authors, and this is not the style of Agatha Christie. It's a different style, but it definitely fits that mold of a whodunit. And so I was just eating it up the whole time. This is set in a very unique world, which has been compared to Attack on Titan. Now, I don't know that I would go that far, to be perfectly honest. There are resemblances for sure. This region of the world is besieged by beasts called Leviathans, and they are called Titans at various different points in the story. So they are these large beasts that sometimes resemble humanoids that do make landfall on occasion. They come up out of the sea and they make landfall and they destroy human structures. And it is set up with different tiers of walls. So there's a third ring and a second ring and a first ring. So it bears some similarities to Attack on Titan, but the resemblances are kind of an afterthought. That's not the main focus of the story. Now, I don't know if that will be the main focus in future books in this series, because I'm pretty sure it's planned to at least have 2 more books. So we'll see if it starts to resemble Attack on Titan more as it goes on. But so far, I'm not really sold on that comparison. And another really cool feature of this world is it does feature plants very heavily, okay? There is a plant for almost everything. There are plants that serve different functions in society to do things like clean the air or perfume a room. And there are certain fungi that are very large and they provide light to different rooms. So if you have one particular fungi in a room, it's gonna act like a lamp, and so it's really just this cool botanistic overlay to the story that makes it super unique. And I was just eating it up. I was fascinated. It's not like anything I've read before, so that was really cool. And even though I do call it a fantasy, it is kind of blurring the lines of what a fantasy really is, not just with the botany aspects, but also with the magic, because it's not so much magic as it is science, although it acts as a form of magic. So many of the people in this world are called sublimes, and sublimes are humans that have been enhanced to be able to do different things. And in order to be enhanced, they have had to go through different surgical and scientific procedures. So there is kind of that subtle sci-fi element that kind of blurs those lines, and I thought that was really cool. So for instance, our junior investigator, Dennis Cole, is an engraver. So he can make his memory function in a way that is kind of photographic by smelling different scents that he can associate with different things that are happening in an area that he happens to be in. He can then sniff that different scent later and be able to recall everything that he saw. So it's kind of like a photographic memory, but not totally. Every scent is associated with certain happenings, and so he has been assigned to Immunis Ana Delabra because she needs an engraver to be her assistant inspector. So it's just this fascinating combination of different things. There are other enhancements as well, and these enhancements are fused into people by way of what they call grafts. So these skills are grafted into them by certain punctures in the skin or by feeding them different pellets of different kinds that enhances their system and changes them and mutates them in a sense. And so there's other enhanced groups such as axioms who are able to do massive calculations of numbers and things like that. That reminded me a lot of mentats in the Dune universe, because they're kind of like human computers, so that's what the axioms are in this universe. So it's just really cool, and so you can't necessarily call it a magic system, but it kind of is, but it's also kind of scientific, and there's this whole botany feature that overlays everything. So there is a connection behind the plants that create these enhancements and the Leviathans, and there's not a whole lot of information in this first book about how that works, but it is kind of implied that the corpses of the Leviathans create these unique plants. So it's really cool. And I know I've said this numerous times how cool it is, so I'm just going to stop talking about how cool it is because you've obviously gotten the point. The characters in the book are definitely outlined in a very specific militarized system. So even at the beginning of the book, the author is kind enough to give you a list of all the different ranks in the Imperial Army so that you can kind of know as you're going throughout the book what these different people are, what their ranks are, and how other characters compare to them, whether they outrank them or are outranked by them. And you don't necessarily need that to a great extent, but it's kind of cool to have. And because there are the concentric rings of this particular world, there is sort of a caste system as well that is set up. So depending on the caste that a person is in, they might live within one of the different rings that are set up here. I really like the way the character development was kind of designed around that, and the specific characters are developed really, really well. And I love that Robert Jackson Bennett does not give you all the information about the main characters right away. You get little pieces throughout the story that tells you more and more about these characters. And it doesn't drag, which I thought was really good, because if you're not given information about characters right away, sometimes that can make a book really drag and you feel like you're not really getting to know the characters well. I felt very satisfied with how well I was getting to know these characters. So that was really good. I think I've really given you a good picture of what I liked about the book, and I can't really think of a thing that I did not like about the book, other than there were certain characters in the book that I felt like we could have spent more time with, gotten to know them a little bit better. One of those character groups in particular is the Haza clan. I really felt like I wanted to know more about them than I got, but I know there are other books coming, so this is just a first book in the series, and I feel like I got enough to whet my taste buds to continue on into the next book. And I'm kind of feeling at this point like once that next book comes out, I'm going to get it right away and start reading it right away maybe, because I really want to know what happens. It definitely left me itching for another book and wanting to know more about the story. So that's really all I have to say about this book. I don't want to go into too much detail for fear of spoiling this for you, but just know if you love mysteries and you like noir settings and you like completely unique worlds and you don't mind a fantasy mystery combination, this book is so for you guys. I really think you will enjoy this. And if you've really enjoyed Robert Jackson Bennett's other books, then you'll probably enjoy this one, I'm guessing. I have not read any of his other books. I definitely want to now that I've read this, and so we'll see how that goes. As far as my tier rank goes for this book, I am putting it in my hoard. It is a solid keeper for me, guys, and I'm so happy I read it. I can't wait for the next book to come out. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Have you read this book? Have you read other Robert Jackson Bennett books and enjoyed them? Talk with me in the comments below. Has my review made you want to really read this book right away now? Let me know that as well. I love to talk with you. And until next time, guys, make sure you read more books. We'll talk soon. And I'd like to give a special shout out to all of my patrons. I really appreciate all the support you give my channel.